Joining me now, Eric Wimple, media critic with The Washington Post, and Libby Locke, an attorney specializing in libel and defamation. Thank you both for coming on. Libby, let's start with you. You say the White House has a point here when it comes to wanting to change libel laws and making them stricter. Why?
That's absolutely right. Let's be clear. The First Amendment is important. The First Amendment guarantees a free press, but it doesn't guarantee a consequence-free press. The media has a megaphone that can harm and damage a person or a company's reputation with one news story. But
doesn't the president as well? I mean, he continually, as you hear him say, look, CNN is fake news. I mean, doesn't the president have the same thing?
Well, look, the president is held to a higher standard when it comes to suing the media. He's a public figure, but the courts have issued decisions that have been really overly protective of the media and the First Amendment when it comes to considering who is a public figure and who's a private figure, and some real reform is needed.
All right, we're going to get to that in just a moment, but I want to go to Eric Wimple to get your reaction. As you know, Eric, this is not the first time the president has attacked the media. In fact, he spent much of his Saturday rally continuing his feud. Let's listen to that.
Let's rate the media's 100 days. They are a disgrace. Media outlets like CNN and MSNBC are fake news. Take the totally failing New York Times. They write nasty editorials and op-eds. The Washington media is part of the problem. I think we would all agree the media deserves a very, very big, fat, failing grade.
All right, so Eric, you heard what President Trump said. We've heard that many times, and you heard what Libby said here. What's your reaction? She's basically saying that it should be easier to crack down on the media.
Well, I mean, I think that what Libby is saying and what President Trump is saying, I think it's important to distinguish between those two. What President Trump appears to want is just a much easier job in basically suing companies and news organizations that have reported very honestly and very factually about him. That is a load of trash. Now, I would point out, too, that Trump is more likely to be a defendant in libel and defamation cases these days than he is to be a plaintiff. There's an example here. Sherry Jacobus has sued Donald Trump for calling her a real dummy and a loser. This was back in February of 2016 that he called her these things. And the court said, no, Donald Trump, that's protected opinion. So these libel laws are generous in ways that have already helped Donald Trump. What Libby is talking about is some reform between how courts handle private figures and public figures isn't something that really, as far as I can see, that the White House could do by snapping its fingers in any case. So I'd like to hear a little more from her about there, but Libby Locke, yeah. I mean, she happens to be the lawyer that just sued the pants off of Rolling Stone. I believe they got a very nice settlement there. So I don't know that she should be the one saying that this is so hard. And by the way, I cheered on that lawsuit. I thought that Rolling Stone deserved to have its pants sued off.
Well, look, that was a lawsuit that required many years of litigation and millions of dollars to prosecute that litigation. And that just demonstrates how hard it is to sue the media and overcome the standards that are imposed on it, which are, yes, constitutional standards. But I think one of the first and foremost things the administration can do is appoint judges who understand that the First Amendment guarantees a free press, but again, not a consequence-free press. And there are a lot of different things that can be done. And
I was going to ask you, Eric, I mean, do you think that it's a consequence-free press?
No, I don't think it's a consequence-free press. I think we get hammered when we get things wrong. You know, whether Libby is happy with the settlements and the millions of dollars that she collects from media organizations when these things happen is another matter. But I would point out, Libby, that President Trump seems very happy with his appointment of Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. But Neil Gorsuch didn't come out of those confirmation hearings and say we need to look at libel laws. I think he's pretty happy with the state of law in this area. So I'd like you to forward some names of some judges that would tinker with the system.
I'd be happy to do that, but look, I don't think the president is looking for easy defamation suits. I think he's looking for a level playing field. The media.
No, he's looking for easy defamation
Eric,
suits.
let me finish. Eric, let me finish.
I'm sorry.
I'll let you finish.
We'll get back to you, Eric.
In state after state, there is a thumb that is on the scale to protect the media, and they can say things with impunity and ruin people's lives and reputations. They have shorter statute of limitations than any other kind of civil claim. There are anti-SLAPP statutes, which provide incredible protections for the media that make it, in some states have held that these statutes that are enacted deprive a plaintiff from the right to a jury trial. It's incredible what these statutes do. The media is protected from answering questions in civil discovery in a way that other civil defendants are not. So I think the president really has a point in asking not for easier defamation suits, but just a level playing field here.
Eric, you disagree?
Well, Libby, I think those, we can have that reasoned debate, but that's not what President Trump is doing. Have you ever heard President Trump talk about SLAPP suits? Have you ever heard President Trump talk about thresholds for, for discovery, thresholds for, for testifying in these things? Have you ever heard him talk about, the media's right to not be subpoenaed and testify in these situations? I don't think he's talking about that, Libby. I think he's talking about he wants to be able to sue the media because he doesn't like criticism.
But these are the kinds of statutes.
It is true that he says fake news on stories, including stories that I have been a part of, that are accurate, that are based in fact.
But look, these kinds of protections for the media are what allow the media to run amok. There's less of a fear in the newsroom and in the editing room for making sure that you get it right. What other profession?
Well,
lawyers,
I can tell you that's not the case in this newsroom.
Lawyers,
no.
Doctors, accountants, when they damage someone and they hurt someone, they are held to account in a way that the media just isn't these days.
And just really quickly,
I
because I
disagree.
know go ahead, Eric.
I disagree, and Libby, I've seen the suits that you bring that do bring a considerable amount of oversight, and I must say fear and, yes, caution into newsrooms. I'd cite the recent case that I just wrote about that you brought against CNN itself. And the story about the Florida hospital and pediatric surgery. I think that's a well-crafted complaint, and I think it has a ripple effect across newsrooms to be really careful. I've sat in hundreds of meetings with lawyers talking about libel law, talking about the various thresholds with public and private figures and so on and so forth. I don't think you understand how carefully we do take our job to get things straight and to protect people that we're writing about.
I'm not saying all journalists are careless, but I'm saying that there was a poll that just came out yesterday or the day before yesterday that a majority of Americans, 51% of Americans, believe that the media is out of touch with mainstream America. There was a UVA poll in their Center for Politics that came out that 81% of Trump supporters agree with his statements that the media is the public enemy.
There is clearly a trust issue at play here, but the notion of changing libel laws would be, it is impractical if you take a step back and look at all that would take, including having the Supreme Court weigh in again. But this is a really interesting discussion. Thank you so much to both of you. We do appreciate that. A very, very interesting, lively discussion there.
Thanks for having me.